Hey guys, what's up? It's Finch here. It's been a long while. In fact, since I covered a video like this, it's been about 3 years. In October of 2021, I put out what was partially a black and white overused tier list. Using Tier Maker, of course, like this, I ranked, all the Pokemon in black and white based on their viability. For those unfamiliar, viability is essentially a concept saying how good, how practical, how effective a Pokemon is in any tier or metagame. In this instance, the Pokemon that would be the best in any given tier would be S rank. They would be, superb. A tier would be, the next, and it kind of goes like a grading system in school, if you're familiar. B would be, viable, good. You'll see them here and there. C would be more niche. D would be you'll see them once in a blue moon, and F would probably be meaning, you see it, okay, but more likely than not, you won't be seeing it, and if it is, you might be using something that's suboptimal. I went ahead and created one of the most full-fledged lists of black and white overused, Generation 5, for those unfamiliar, tiers in, recent history. And there have been people, that have been recently discussing, Latios, Tyranitar, number 1, number 2, is Exeter potentially going to be number 2, is Ferrothorn still in the top 5, all the nitty-gritty, and that's awesome and swell, and I invite people to continue having that discourse in their circles. What I wanted to do is create an expansive list, because I've been playing this generation since 2011 when I began. It's probably the generation that I've been the best at over the years, and while I might be more known for my leading of Generation 9 OU, I always will have a spot in my heart for the 5th generation. And truth be told, I really like this generation. But with that in mind, I am not the best YouTuber. As you guys may notice, I uploaded a couple times 8 months ago, a couple times 12 or 13 months ago, and it's been very scattered. My goal is to use this video as a bit of a pilot and see if I have the stamina, consistency, motivation to record content, and if there is interest. So if this goes well, I might launch a bit of a series of video essay type videos on interesting concepts in the Pokemon world. A lot of them have come to my mind. As to if I'll have the time, as to if the interest will be there, it's yet to be seen. If there's no interest, that's no problem, I don't take offense, and if there's a lot of interest, I might very well pursue it. We'll have to wait and see. With that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and, instead of starting from the bottom, where I'm sure many of you guys are curious in seeing why Claydol is there, why Zoroark is there, we're going to go all the way to the top. That's right, we're going to start with the best of the best, and I'm going to set a stopwatch on my phone, try to cut every tier, within a certain number of minutes, maybe, 1 minute per Pokemon, give or take, maybe a little more at the top, a little less at the bottom, but yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and get going. So S tier, Latios is undoubtedly the first ranked Pokemon. For those unfamiliar, Latios, is a real metagame definer. It's got amazing, I believe, 130 base special attack, especially before the crazy power creep we've seen in fairy generations. That is, elite. Couple this with 110 speed and a great typing. It's a natural check to things like Thundurus, Therian, Keldeo, Rotom Washes, Stabs. Being a water resist is huge. Having a ground immunity in a metagame filled with Spikes and Earthquake, also quite big. But also the combination of, Drago Meteor, Surf, as a potential for Trick, as a potential for Empower Fire or Side Shock, and a variety of other moves, Calm Mind, Dragon Pulse, all can do quite nicely. Latios is the quintessential metagame definer. In any list, if it's not number 1 or maybe number 2, it's probably not a very serious list, and one that I would personally discard. Starts at the top, and Latios is the top. There was a Smogon Premier League, which is the best tournament in general, and also the best black and white overused showcase every year, in my opinion, where I play black and white OU, and I use Latios 10 out of 10 games, 100% usage. And while truth be told, exaggerated, 100% usage marks aren't necessary, the consistency to see Latios at or above 50% usage, which goes without saying that it's one of the metagame definers. And in fact, Latios being that, quintessential face, centralizer in the metagame, is also why Tyranitar, and a large part of why Tyranitar is number 2. Tyranitar itself isn't necessarily the best Pokemon. In fact, oftentimes it's there more so as a reactionary, responsive measure, as opposed to being the disruptor, the centralizer, the focus. But what it can do is so unique and so capable of, positive standout traits that it deserves to be placed second, if not then third at absolute worst on this list, in my opinion. In the weather generation, so to speak, Tyranitar is able to set up Sandstorm, which can disrupt rain, sun, or even hail, which, as you'll see on this list, I have pretty highly ranked. I have it above Sun, actually, and Abomasnow all the way in B+ subrank, which is pretty impressive if you ask me. With this in mind, though, Tyranitar I have second because it's able to pursuit trap things like Latios, Starmie, potentially Reuniclus. It's able to disrupt things like, you go down the list, I suppose you could even see things like Thunderous Therian or Tornadus, Latios, Xatu, and so basically it combines two really unique things. It could disrupt the natural flow and progression of other weathers, and it could trap psychic types, much like Generation 1, although not to the same overblown extent. Psychic types have gone to be, one of the faces of Black-White. They've come to dominate. They've been some of the most polarizing Pokemon in the metagame. Being able to pursuit trap these Pokemon, frequently due to running a specially defensive set with the Sand boost in defense and Choppleberry for Focus Blast, allows Tyranitar to really be unique. Sand teams are not able to keep things like Reuniclus and Alakazam that have Magic Guard, meaning they ignore sand damage and spike damage, in check without something like Pursuit Tyranitar. Of course, Tyranitar has other traits as well. It's able to be a mixed attacker. It could run a Choice Band or Choice Scarf Disruptor set. It could run various status coverage moves as well. Even Stealth Rocks on occasion, although less often than before, just because it doesn't match up too well into Excadrill. With that in mind, though, Tyranitar is great. It is able to 1v1 every Latios set. It is able to break the Sash of and weaken Alakazam, or kill it outright if it's Life Orb. It should 1v1 every Reuniclus if it's not Rocky Helmet, and Tyranitar has the right moveset. It even is able to, say for example, come in on a Tentacle in Rain, and barring on first turn Scald Burn, take it out. There's other things like now without gems being allowed, with Rock Slide or Thunder Wave, if it's not Lumberry, it should be able to disrupt Volcarona. Latios' Calm Mindsets go from very good to limited. Things like Xatu can potentially have their blocking of Skarmory or Ferrothorn disrupted, or at least challenged by Tyranitar. You go down the list as well if you so please, and you'll see a lot of things that Tyranitar, for example, Gengar would be awesome if Tyranitar didn't exist, but it does, so tough. But yeah, Tyranitar is kind of the counter glue of Black and White overused. If Latios is the glue, or maybe you even could just look at Tyranitar as the glue, the response mechanism to things like Latios, which is, the epitome of the power creep of Generation 5. The role compression of such a strong offensive behemoth and how it fits so nicely in the teams, while Tyranitar responds to it as well as anything else in the metagame. And it does so with such a practical set of traits that, in my opinion, it's number 2. Now, if you were to put Excadrill number 2 right now, I would understand it, because you do see Excadrill on some weather lists, you see Excadrill on some rain teams, and it's on a majority of sand teams right now, but it's certainly not on all sand teams. And in my eyes, Tyranitar's sets traits are just a little more desirable. So again, it's like Latios clear 1. If there were like subtiers of S, like S plus would be Latios, S would be Tyranitar and Excadrill, and then S minus would be Ferrothorn, and you could argue for a Landorus T or Alakazam or even a Skarmory there, but we'll get to those in A plus where I got them now. So pivoting to Excadrill anyway. Excadrill has really had some ups and downs. Obviously got banned, and that was many years where it wasn't allowed, and then the moment came back and Excadrill was freed in one of the most controversial Black and White decisions, and just honestly general tiering decisions ever. It was what opened the door to all generation tiering in the first place, and a lot of people disliked how it was handled. Back then, I was pretty fond of it. Nowadays, it's definitely more of a head scratcher. With this in mind, though, I am definitely fond of Excadrill and Black-White at this point. It provides Rapid Spin, which is huge, and while Sand Rush obviously was too much for the metagame, even when used outside of sand teams, it standalone is a great Pokemon. So looking at Excadrill, it does so much. And while it doesn't really have a defensive niche, it is able to check things like Clefable, Jirachi. It's able to revenge kill Swords Dance Scizor. It should be able to 1v1 things like bulky Latios. But what really is great about it is its ability to disrupt and ability to rapid spin. Against bulky teams, it's able to rapid spin against virtually everything. There's no ghost type that stops it. Spin blocking does still very much exist in black and white, but it more so applies to things like Tentacruel as opposed to things like Excadrill. In addition to this, it is able to be very disruptive with Sand Force and Sand. The combination of Earthquake and Iron Head is really, really hard to swap into. Things like Gliscor and Landers can do so once or twice, but repeatedly, especially if some sequences are gotten correct, it becomes very challenging. Keep in mind that you have Excadrill Pokemon with over 130 base attack, coupled with Stab, coupled with a likely Adamant Nature, coupled with Sand Force, coupled with potential Sand Chip if it's like a bulky water or grass type, and you really become problematic. Things like Earthquake can clean to it KO on Hippowdon, or even a Slowbro after Stealth Rock, depending on the setup that you have. And I think it goes without saying that Excadrill has become a real behemoth in the Black and White OU metagame. Similar to Tyranitar, albeit to a lesser extent, it has an amazing roll compression between providing you Steel, which is a ton of resistances, Ground type, every team needs a Ground type or a Volt Switch immunity in my opinion, and then the fact that it has Rapid Spin and such sheer strength. Choice Scarf sets really thrive off that. It's very hard for offense to switch into Choice Scarf sets, but bulky teams do better against it. Leftovers is truly the bread and butter though. Being able to keep off or kind of keep trading with Skarmory, especially if you're running a Swords Dance set. Rock Slide's also a pretty good option on it, really able to chunk things like Rotom Wash more, and it's better in Skarmory, while also clocking, the occasional Zapdos or Thundurant, Therian that may switch in. Even Gyarados, if you're running Jolly, rocks up some Sand Chip, even if you're -1, Rock Slide will do the trick there. So yeah, Swords Dance Drill, it's great. You can run a Substitute and essentially stall out Hydro Pumps from Rotom. Maybe sub on a Whisk, get some free moves in, flinching things out. It really can be such a dynamic, arguably the strongest standalone Pokemon aside from Latios in the metagame, and probably the strongest standalone Pokemon on the physical side in the metagame. While having such utility leads it to clearly be an S rank right now. And again, if you put it at the top of A+, you said, oh, I only want Latios and Tyranitar, you're that kind of purist of Black-White, I won't fault you, but Excadrill has to be in your top 5 at the moment. It's really become a dominant, force in the metagame, especially as we've seen the shift to more bulky teams. It's the premier punisher, especially with the Swords Dance sets of those teams. You see Excadrill killing things that it really should never be killing. Oh, a +2 Excadrill just beat my Skarmory or my Bronzong 1v1. What do I do? Nothing. That's just what Excadrill's place in the metagame. It's a punisher of these teams, and those teams do have to be clever. For example, I've been running like max speed Gliscor just to not get flinched out or subdued by Excadrill, and that's no coincidence. Unfortunately, you have to do that. Rotom Wash has seen a huge uptick in popularity, where it was like at the top of B+ or the bottom of A- this time a year ago, and now it's firmly an A rank for me, and that's largely a response to Excadrill and to a lesser extent Mamoswine, and I don't regret that, quite frankly. Pushing forward, Ferrothorn, it's 1A to Skarmory's 1B more or less right now. There's a point where Ferrothorn probably saw closer to 3/4 of the pie chart among the spikers in the metagame. Nowadays, we'll see a lot more Skarmory, which is why it's ranked high in A+ as opposed to back in A where I had it a year ago. We'll also see the occasional, Fortress or leads like we'll cover later, such as, Frostlass and Scolipede. Those, of course, being more niche and fulfilling a different role, but Ferrothorn has actually evolved. We'll see it run more Rost or Lumberry than ever before. Choppleberry is perfectly valid on as well. Shedshell for Magnezone's even seen some play on various teams. We'll see Thunderwave more often nowadays, albeit not as necessarily as a main set, but as something to punish something like a Reuniclus, or even catch the right Pokemon to switch in. If you Thunderwave a Volcarona, that's going to do wonders for you. Warrior Seed's also good for something like a Gliscor or a Magnezone 2 in a pinch. With this in mind, though, Ferrothorn's main tricks are what they always have been and what they are in various other generations. It's amazing with Disruption, it's amazing with so many resistances, and most importantly, it's amazing with Spikes. Spikes do run the show in Black White Overused. That is no shock. You'll see, Pokemon that maybe don't scream, oh, I'm a top 10 Pokemon in Black White OU, like Starmie in A+, and you'll see Excadrill in S, and you'll see Tentacruel and otherwise lackluster Pokemon abusing Rain and having Rapid Spin in A-, and Fortress in B+, and Xatu, Hazard Bouncer in B, and that is not a coincidence whatsoever, because you notice there's a ton of Hazard vulnerable Pokemon. in the metagame, and Ferrothorn is probably the best hazard setter in the game. This set of resistances, it can risk the stabs of Pokemon like Latios, like Starmie, and Rotom-Wash. Thunderous, Force Charge, Focus Blast, largely due to Pokemon like, I guess Excadrill and Ferrothorn in a sense, but yeah, Ferrothorn is just that guy. I mean, you could definitely put it in A+, and I wouldn't fault you. Skarmory is seeing similar levels of usage to it, albeit a bit less, more archetype restricted. You'll see Ferrothorn on a vast majority of rain teams. You'll see Skarmory on virtually no rain teams, but if you flip things a little bit, you will see Skarmory on plenty of sand teams, but you also see Ferrothorn on plenty of sand teams, and then bulky teams will probably see a little more Skarmory, just because having Roost, that longevity, the ground immunity, but Ferrothorn still sees its usage on those as well. Needless to say, though, Ferrothorn is an absolutely amazing Pokemon in Black White overused, and belongs to be in the top 5, in my opinion, as well. Going into A+ rank now, so we'll move down a little bit. You can still see, what Pokemon are there in S, hopefully. Landorus, Therian, Skarmory, Alakazam, Keldeo, and Starmie. There's definitely going to be a quote-unquote bruh moment, if you will, from a lot of players. Why is Starmie there, you might be asking? Why is Skarmory so high? Why is Keldeo there? Where is Rain? I get it. I'm not going to fight you on that there. But what I will say is the metagame has changed. What roles of the needles changed? Team composition changed. The way in which we'll see something like rain versus sand, or hail even for that matter, has shifted quite a bit over the last year. And I'm going to give you a detailed explanation on why I think each Pokemon fits, and also potentially why some are better than others, relatively speaking. So let's talk about Landorus Therian first off. I think if you take the lists of 10 top Black-White players, all 10 of them will have Landorus in A+, and it'll always be between number 4 and number 8. I personally have it at 5, pretty close to the middle of that, maybe slightly high end. Why? Well, Landorus T is a Stealth Rock setter that has a great matchup into Excadrill, Main Spinner. It should be able to 1v1 Tentacruel. And it also is, not only is it good into those Rapid Spinner, especially Excadrill, but also is great into offense. Switching into Earthquake plus Hidden Power Ice while accounting for U-turn is tough. Things like Balloon Starmie can come in on the Earthquake and obviously 2 HP Ice, but it takes a U-turn and it's at 10% health. It has that pseudo Mamoswine type of defensive presence, and it really mandates switch loops with things like Rotom-Wash or Skarmory, and that type of passivity, that type of predictability in switch patterns, if you get a U-turn to or to right, can really be abused by teammates. Pair a Landorus Therian with a dynamic special attacker, and you're really going to be able to seize on that momentum. But on top of having that momentum, it's an amazing check to many things, being able to check things like Excadrill, as we said before, non-Ice Beam Dranitar, of course, as well. It should be able to 1v1 pretty much every physical Garchomp. It is a soft check to non-HP Ice Terrakion. It's able to revenge kill +1 and potentially even a +3. Scizor, Dragonite, it 1v1s if it's not Ice Punch or Ice Beam. The list goes on. Truth be told, it's just a great sponge. It's really a plus Pokemon into the opposing, weatherless offense matchup, and into more physical heavy sand teams. And accounting for the combination of Hidden Power Ice hitting opposing Landorus and Gliscor and Dragonite hard, and Earthquake off of Sky High, I think 145 base attack. So you don't even really need to invest in attack. Typically you go max speed, some HP, and some defense, or even just max HP depending on if you're lazy or not. We've even seen more physical heavy. We've seen a couple of rogue special defensive Landorus to chew HP Ice from Alakazam and Draco from Latios, so you don't have to go hard Tyranitar and get the Pursuit off in -2 or Scout Surf. There's a lot of different ways to skin the cat, is how kind of I'm pointing at it. But overall, Landorus T is a phenomenal Pokemon. You do see Choice Scarf sets on occasion. They do die to Stealth Rock and random Rocky Helmet, Onion Barbs, rough skin quicker than you like it to. But they can play a nice role. It's cool to claim a Thunderous or Tornadus early in the game with the Stone Edge. They don't see that coming. But it's harder to pull off of that set in the modern context. You really need hazard management or enough offensive pressure where the onus is on you to break before you get broken, if you will. And you'll also see sets like especially with Magnezone, like Rock Polish plus U-turn, to bait those red sequences, or even, you know, the traditional Swords Dance variants as well. It can work. You know, we'll even see normal gem explosion lead sets on a slim rare occasion, especially on that Dice Hail. But yeah, the Stealth Rock sets were the bread and butter for Landorus, and why it's up here. And it's probably, you know, if Ferrothorn and Skarmory are the best overall hazard setters in the metagame, they're spike focused, and Landorus, he is the best rocker. Definitely better than something like Tyranitar, which doesn't really want to fit rocks on more teams than not. And, you know, I'd say it's a tier above something like a Garchomp, something like a Gliscor, something like a Jirachi. And truth be told, the more I look at this, like, yeah, you know, I mean, with rockers, you really have Ferrothorn, which probably is a little better of a spiker than a rocker. And then Landorus as the only potential rockers that are super common. You don't see a ton of rocks on Drill unless it's Mold Breaker. You don't see many rock tars anymore unless paired with another rocker. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely the best rocker in the metagame, I'd say. Moving along to Skarmory. Skarmory is a great Pokemon. I'm sure you all know what Skarmory does. It's, you know, a physically defensive behemoth. Especially defensive Skarmory, actually not bad. It can soft check things like Focus Sash Alakazam, Choice Scarf Latios, and whirl out something like a Psychic plus Focus or Psychic plus Ice Reuniclus as well. That's really good. You know, that could also, in theory, soft check something like a Nasty Plot, non-hidden Power Fire, Celebi, and it still retains the physical bulk where it can check a Swords Dance Garchomp or a Gliscor, and, you know, hang in there temporarily at least versus a non-Swords Dance Excadrill. With this in mind, though, Skarmory's become really one of the integral parts of the metagame, especially on bulky teams. You know, we see these Powdon Clefable builds that have really been, you know, transcendent in the metagame, bringing a different, you know, matchup coverage than we've ever seen before, with this kind of combination of not being as reliant on Spike Weak Pokemon. You'll see, like, you know, a Clefable paired with, like, a Skarmory and Alakazam, and then like a Gliscor, if not a Powdon, or a Powdon, and then maybe like a Scarf Trick Rotom-Wash, or a Latios or Latias on those type teams. And you really only have 1-2 top Spike Weak Pokemon. And Skarmory not only fits on those Pokemon on those teams as one of the Pokemon not weak to spikes, but on top of that, it also is the spiker on those teams to pry on other teams. And you know, it's almost taken for granted what Skarmory can do, because it's not truly like a super remarkable, uber strong or uber like tanky Pokemon. Like, there are physical attackers that can beat it. Swords Dance Drill should be able to beat it. Any like SD plus Fire Blast Garchomp, or, you know, with enough flinch chances, a Mamoswine, or a Swords Dance plus Superpower Scizor, any Swords Dance Dragon, or Choice Band Dragon for that matter, should be able to beat it. Don't get me wrong, right? Like, in a 1v1 vacuum, it's not that good a Pokemon. It loses to a majority of the things you'll see, not to mention virtually every special attacker under the sun. But in practice, it's able to, you know, win those micro interactions, force those spikes plus whirl sequences, erode away at that Excadrill, force that Tyranitar to take Stealth Rock and spikes off a Whirlwind. Suddenly your Alakazam and Latios are disruptive, and there's nothing you can do but pray it doesn't whirl you in. And yeah, it does lose 1v1 to like Swords Dance Spin Drill. It loses 1v1 to pretty much every Starmie set I know. It should lose 1v1 to Tentacruel in Rain, you know. It's not a good Pokemon if you're looking only at the 1v1 interactions, but if you realize it can switch, you know, repeatedly, almost infinitely, into a Gliscor, into an Excadrill, into a non-Fire Blast Garchomp, you know, with some caution into a Mamoswine or Jirachi, into a non-Fire Blast Tyranitar, non-Choice Tyranitar anyway. Let's see if it's picked up a little bit. And, you know, combine its ability to phase. Whirlwind is super valuable and underrated in this metagame, and its ability to spike. And, you know, on top of that, it could, you know, be running a Suicide lead set. That's been really good, you know. That set archetype with a lead Skarmory plus a Jellicent has, you know, been solid. It definitely has its matchup holes, but it's also something that you have to respect. We've been seeing, you know, an uptick of respect for that, be it in terms of Zapdos usage ticking up, or, you know, more micro innovations like Magic Coat on Magnezone or Taunt on Thundurus T, just to win that turn 1 right there is enormous. And it shows how people in the metagame are realizing that they can't be playing a step behind, even if they're playing 6v5 into lead Skarmory, because any switch they have is going to be punished more than the opponent, and that's going to lead to a net negative at a time. And that net negative is because of the presence of Skarmory and its hazards, and it's, you know, really challenged to disrupt it. Now, truth be told, Skarmory does come with faults. It can be trapped by a Magnezone. It can be spun on repeatedly. But again, in practice, it's just so effective. And, the more I think about it, the more I almost want to move Ferrothorn down to A+, and move Skarmory ahead of Landorus T. But truth be told, I think it's best as is, just because it doesn't have such a widespread defensive profile like Ferrothorn. It does lose to almost every special attacker, and if it goes special defensive, it does give up a pretty substantial physical defensive trade-off while not beating a ton of special attackers. So we'll leave it as is. Not that I have a chance to change it anyway. This is a tier maker I made a day or two ago. Moving forward, though, Alakazam, a Pokemon that actually has been getting some suspect talk traction as of late in Black-White circles, some more satirically, some more literally. Whatever it may be, Alakazam, is a glowing Zam. It's one of the faces of Black-White, and it arguably, its profile has kind of personified the metagame to many from afar, and quite frankly to many who play it regularly as well. Alakazam, ever since it got Magic Guard in the middle of the generation, rose from being, an RUBL or UU fringe type Pokemon, like it was a UU Pokemon in Generation 4, to one of the behemoths of overused. Magic Guard combined with opponents taking Stealth Rocks and Spikes and Sand and Status, being able to ignore all of those is insane. Couple that with, a superb gaudy speed stat of 120, where it's able to naturally outrun things like Latios, like Volcarona, Keldeo, Starmie, Thundurus, Therian, and Tornadus, all of the quote-unquote fast boys of the metagame. The only Pokemon that really naturally outrun it aren't really OU Pokemon. You'll see Pokemon that we ranked way further down this list, like a Weavile or Jolteon, naturally outrun it, but they haven't really been OU prominent. Taking that aside, though, I do feel as if Alakazam, just has so many amazing qualities to it. But what really stands it out is its ability to pretty much hit and disrupt everything, especially as we've been seeing people pivot away from Focus Blast due to its reliability and use things like Grass Knot plus Hidden Power Fire in an age where Heatran is seldom utilized. That's pretty huge for it, imagine a set with Psychic or Psyshock, Grass Knot, Hidden Power Fire, and Signal Beam or Shadow Ball. Those four moves can threaten everything. Latios, Signal Beam or Shadow Ball, Trentar, Grass Knot, X-Drill, and Ferrothorn, Hidden Power Fire. Landorus doesn't like taking either Psychic move and has to respect Hidden Power Ice. Skarmory doesn't like Hidden Power Fire. Keldeo, which we'll get to next, Psychic move, and Signal Beam, Shadow Ball, or Grass Knot for Starmie. And it goes down the list. And obviously, most of them is a 2-hit KO rather than a 1-hit KO, and that is big for a Pokemon like Alakazam, which likes to bulk, but as the game wears on, you're going to be seeing Spikes and Sand and Stealth Rock erode away at Pokemon. Maybe synergetic attackers like a Latios or a Rio Nicholas erode away at those Pokemon as well, to the point where Alakazam is one of the perfect late game, cleaner Pokemon. And couple that with the fact that while it's a good cleaner into balance teams and bulky offensive teams, into hard offense, it's a big threat standalone. It's a very big threat standalone, but it also is glue. With Focus Sash and Magic Guard, it can tank any one hit, unless it's a multi-hit move like Bullet Seed from Breloom, or Beat Up from Weavile, or Double Hit from Scizor, all of these being very niche, of course. It's able to take any one hit with that Focus Sash intact. So suddenly, you got like a +1/+1 Dragonite, or a +2 for Scizor, or a +2 Dragon, whatever it may be with Quick Attack. If your Sash is intact, you're able to use that as a get out of jail free card. And it could even, if you're able to fit it, run niche moves like Taunt or Encore to, flip more sequences. You could cater it towards your team. And that customizability has not only made Alakazam a benefit for more teams and kind of an optimal solution to so many different problems where you can compress your roles. It has somehow, despite having no defensive presence, no defensive profile, isn't a true check to anything in this metagame. It's not a true counter to anything in the metagame. It's fit onto so many builds that need that defensive glue with the roll, with that compression. And in practice, it's become such an amazing tool, both offensively and defensively. Alakazam is probably the most black and white Pokemon there is, in capturing the metagame, aside from Latios. And it does hold that similar, I hate Pursuit Tyranitar feel to Latios, but the fact that you can kind of force a trade if you hit a Focus Blaster, you got the Grass Knot. That's not a bad thing whatsoever, and oftentimes, when you're pairing that with a Rio Nicholas or a Latios or Latias or whatever it may be, that goes a long way. And this isn't even to mention the prominence of Life Orb Alakazam, which has become one of, if not the premier breakers in the metagame as well, with such speed tier, mandating things like choice Scarfers to be used, or things like max special defense on that Choppleberry Tyranitar. So yeah, Alakazam, goes without saying, it's an absolute beast of a Pokemon. We're probably going to not get as in the weeds with every single Pokemon as I realize I've been blowing past by 1 or 2 minutes per Pokemon. I think I'm like 30 minutes into this discussion, and we're on Pokemon number 7. Yikes, and she hikes. Pivoting to Keldeo, though, Keldeo has been odd because there was a time when it was, a suspect during Black and White 2, and it's been seen as a premier breaker. There have been times where it's actually been seen as more of a liability due to the fact that it doesn't like spikes, it doesn't like status, it doesn't like sand. And then people realized, oh, we could use lefties on sand. Oh, it's still really good on rain. But then there was a counterbalance. We saw more Celebi, we saw more Jellicent, we even saw more things like Amoonguss and Latios. And now we're kind of back in the middle. We're seeing Keldeo adapt. Yes, it has to still run leftovers on sand more often than not. But you can run Hidden Power Bug plus Toxic, or Taunt plus Hidden Power Ghost, or whatever it may be. It kind of middle ground. You're able to hit the Celebi and the Jellicent some fast. You're able to disrupt the things that would check it, but you're still able to run that Water plus Fighting Stab, which is just amazing and potent in the metagame. You're able to have that 108 base speed tier, which lets you outrun a ton of things and be really good in the offense with the dual stab combination plus the threat of an ice move for something like a Dragonite. Able to pair so amazingly well with Tyranitar, forming the OG Keltar core, which really took the ladder by storm. You're able to pursuit that Tyranitar, that Alakazam, and then Keldeo can just clear things out. And yeah, it takes a different look nowadays than it always did before. It's still one of the best, concepts. And that concept of Keldeo plus Tyranitar actually was better, more popular, more discussed than Keldeo and Rain for the initial opening of Keldeo before. And we're talking back in like 2012 when Keldeo came out, or 2011, whatever it may have been. And then Keldeo and Rain became a whole new thing, Scarf Keldeo and Rain. Oh, if you don't have a Rain team with a Tentacle of your own, or a Jellicent, you're in for big trouble. All these offensive teams now just completely wiped out by Scarf Surf or Scarf Hydro Pump and Rain, and it just cleaned house with a little bit of chip, a little bit of hazards, and it went without saying that this was one of the prominent strategies of the metagame, to the point where Keldeo was suspected, and thankfully or not, however you may see it, it was not banned. And this strategy is still good. Scarf Keldeo is still a great Pokemon on Rain. Goes without saying. Specs Keldeo on Rain, arguably even harder to counter. Suddenly you're able to 2-hit KO things like especially defensive Celebi after rocks, or you're able to really, kill an offensive Starmie after rocks with Hydro Pump and Rain. Force Latios to, kind of take irrecoverable damage, Even something like a Sacred Sword can kill a Ferrothorn with very little to no chip. And the list goes on, but yeah, Keldeo, for a number of reasons, is one of the beasts of the metagame and one of the historically best Pokemon. There's certainly a time when it had an argument to be the best Pokemon in A+, or even in like an S- tier, and be fringe top 5. Nowadays, it's more so fringe top 10. I have it at 8. I think that's a little higher than most other people. I think you'll see a lot of people put a Keldeo behind a Politoed. No argue, some people might have it behind a Rhinoniclus or even a Thunderous Therian as well. I don't disrespect those people. I personally disagree, but it goes without saying that that's good. I'll pause this for a second just to get some water. Alright, I'm back. Hopefully you guys can hear me now. Alright, so yeah, pivoting beyond Keldeo, Starmie. Probably the most controversial Pokemon I've placed in the whole damn list. I have it at 9. I have it at an A+. Honestly, I think that's fair. I think Starmie fits very well onto Rain teams right now. Better than Tentacruel, which is the first time you could say that in a long time. Sorry to catch my breath here. I know the production value on this is awful. I think Starmie is a soft check to a handful of Pokemon. A soft check to the offensive ground, especially with the Air Balloon set. A soft check to Keldeo. A soft check to Skarmory. But on top of that, Hydro plus Ice Beam plus Thunder or Thunderbolt winning team, very threatening. I think that set and bulky Starmie fit on the sand teams. I think it's almost a staple in Weatherless offense. And you're like, wait, Starmie fits onto so many archetypes. Starmie is like, its usage is quite high. It's consistently been around the top 10. I'll pull up my phone right now just to see. I imagine there's a lot of people saying, oh, Starmie, that feels like such a classic A tier Pokemon in Black White, and it does feel that way. I can't blame someone for feeling that way, but if you look at how much it fits, especially given it really overtaking Tentacle in rain usage this year, it goes without saying that it's got to be considered for A+. And if you look, this year in SBL, Starmie was a top 12 Pokemon, I believe. Yeah, right behind Rotom W, right ahead of Politoed. It was used more times than, same amount of times as Politoed. And Politoed is, right there, obviously. I mean, I'm sure if you go to other tournaments, I mean, I don't know if Classic usage has been out, admittedly. I'm sure if you go to the Black-White Seasonal, which I can't pull up on my phone right now, I got that Discord open on my computer, on my phone, I apologize, but yeah, and truth be told, Starmie is just one of the best. I mean, hell, and even going back a year further, Starmie was 11th. It was behind Politoed, but it was ahead of Alakazam, Garchomp, Rotom W, Skarmory, all these Pokemon. Skarmory, a Pokemon that we've just rambled on for 5 minutes about, is, ahead, well behind Starmie. And you're starting to realize Starmie itself isn't like a behemoth of a Pokemon. Every single Pokemon was listed before, and a number that lists after are objectively better Pokemon. They win more 1v1s, or they have a better role. But what Starmie does is just so fitting towards the teams that it works on. I mean, being that offensive spinner on Weatherless offense or on Rain offense is so huge, because that spin is super duper important for something like a Thunderous Tea, or even something that's not Soft Rock weak but really wants those removed for the loops, for that Latios, for that Landorus Tea. That's so huge, and you're able to beat virtually every hazard setter besides Ferrothorn. And Ferrothorn you can threaten with Hidden Power Fire if you're not used on a Rain team. Pair it with Magnezone, you're tricking Ferrothorn a ton with Latios. That's a Pokemon that its health is very valuable, but oftentimes dwindled. So, look, you're beating Excadrill, you're beating Landorus Tea, you're beating Skarmory, you're beating Gliscor, you're beating Garchomp. You are able to beat certain others as well. I mean, you do struggle with certain Jirachi, you do struggle with the aforementioned Ferrothorn, you do struggle with Celebi, albeit Celebi is not running rocks as much because that sets a liability to Excadrill. And you look at these, sequential 1v1s, and you're like, okay, so wait a minute, I can't get in Starmie a ton, but when I do, it's able to do its job, and that's kind of all you need. When you see it, I just stubbed my toe. Boy, I got a new desk set up at my new apartment, and I just moved my foot forward. I didn't realize where it was. Oof, that stinks. Okay, let's get back on topic. But yeah, I mean, you look at Starmie, and in my eyes, it's a top 10 Pokemon. You can argue it's 10, you can argue it's 9, probably no higher than that. Politoed versus Starmie is honestly a great discussion. I personally rank Starmie higher because it's on a majority of my Rain teams now, and it's also on a fraction of Sand teams and a majority of Weatherless offense teams as well. Almost all Weatherless offense teams need a spinner, and it is used more often than Scarf Drill. It's certainly used more often than anything else that those teams do. So yeah, I mean, you see a Dragonite, odds are it's going to be paired with a Starmie. You see a Garchomp, odds are it's going to be paired with a Starmie, just how it's kind of been. You see a Volcarona, odds are it's going to be paired with the Starmie. And you see these Pokemon are ranked in A or A-, and that's no coincidence, Starmie is, the support GOAT. And it's funny because it's a Pokemon with horrendous natural bulk, a typing that's weak to Pursuit, a profile that begs to be murdered by Ferrothorn, but given what it can do, what it provides, the speed it provides. For example, if your main check or counter to a Terrakion is going to be Revenge Skunk with Scarf Latios, and that gets Pursuit Trapped, but you're able to chip the Tyranitar when it gets Pursuit Trapped, suddenly you can be too deep if you've got a Starmie. Or the same can apply to a Keldeo, for example, checking Keldeo. You're too deep. You got that second fast Pokemon, or the third fast Pokemon if you're a very offensive team. And that compensates for lacking true defensive counterplay in these trade-heavy, transactional black and white offense mirrors, or offense versus bulky offense games. And Starmie is a really important chip in those games. It also, obviously, is a bit of a mining game, but against these Skarmory plus Jellicent teams, you're either able to beat a Jellicent or you're able to get a spin-off, and that flips the whole script, especially if you can do both. But if you can't do either, that's tough. It's very heavy on getting 1 or 2 turns right, but Starmie is one of the few Pokemon that give you a chance to come back from that, oh, I let up 2 layers of spikes and rocks from a Skarmory, if you've got the wrong early game line. So yeah, I mean, in my eyes, Starmie is clearly a top 10 Pokemon. You could put it at the top of A, you could put it at the bottom of A+. I kind of put it at the bottom of A+, just to stand out, have it be a major talking point. Admittedly, I don't really see a huge line between A+ and A. I think there's definitely drop-off after Keldeo. I think there's another drop-off here, and that leads us to A rank, and that leads us to a Politoed. And now we're at like 37 minutes of discussion, coupled with the preface to this, so we're going to get going a little bit more. Politoed. Politoed is the face of Rain and Black White Overused, obviously with the, getting Drizzle as a Dream World ability. Dream World is like a secondary ability that suddenly became a thing this generation. I'm not going to get into Dream World, maybe another day, another video, but not now. Permanent Rain and Overused, never seen before then, never seen after, because Drizzle got limited, of course, but Rain has been an archetype that has had many highs to the point where during action was needed and more action was deemed appropriate and then not needed. It was long story short, it's great, but Rain actually is worse off now than it's really been in maybe 10-12 years in the history of Black White, honestly. Rain teams are not able to handle the barrage of Psychic types, even weatherless. We're seeing things like Sunny Day Magnezone still hitting new highs. We're seeing, Pokemon like Celebi pop around more often. We're seeing, Rotom Wash, which can either be a disruptor with Joy Scarf, tricking a Feral, or revenge killing a Thundurus or a Tornadus. Ice Shard on Mamoswine is able to revenge kill your Latios, your Thundurus, your Tornadus as well. Truth be told, Rain teams have to be more particular, more spot on, and more sequence. You got to get your sequence perfectly right to play them than ever before. Rain went from being 35% of the pie chart, or a third of the pie chart, to being probably closer to 15-20% tops. And that's not saying it's bad or unviable or anything like that. Nothing beats the feeling of just putting your shit out on the line and just saying, I'm gonna win with these Hydro Pumps and Thunders and my sequences and get a double or two right and just maul someone with an offensive Rain team. And no, those teams are still plenty effective and worth using, but if you run those and you run into like a Hippo, Latios, Clef, Spike team or something like that, or you run into Sunstall, or you run into like weatherless like German sixes, those really bulky stall teams, it's gonna be a very uphill climb if you're not super particular, super perfect with your sequences. But yeah, pivoting that, Thunder's T actually was discussed to move above Politoed by some people, and some people did that, and I considered initially, only didn't, because you do see Thunder's T on some weatherless offensive teams, and even a few stray sand teams with Drill. Just because the Bolt Beam plus Focus Blast, Grass Knot option coverage is so perfect in this metagame. But that aside, if there is a single Pokemon that's a staple on Rain, well, it would be a Spinner, and you'd sit the pie chart split between Starmie being a little ahead and Tentacruel still being usable, albeit at a low point. That said, though, Thunderous T would be the primary offensive option alongside like a Latios, which obviously already ranked in S, and Ferrothorn, which those roles are kind of intangible regardless of archetype to some extent. But Thunderous T, oh boy, just so threatening. Obviously an amazing, all-time top Black-White player like Solwyn called for its ban. Other people have discussed it as suspect, worthy as well. You could easily have it in your top 10 if you were to bump Starmie or Keldeo down. Keldeo, by the way, another great Rain Pokemon. In my eyes, if you're going to have Politoed somewhere, Thunderous T is either going to be the Pokemon immediately in front of or immediately behind it, because with Politoed comes Thundurus a vast majority, let's say 75 to 90% of the time, not every single time, but a vast majority of the time. And with Thundurus comes Politoed, obviously, because it's best when it's using Thunder, not Thunderbolt. It's best when it doesn't have to take that Sand Chip every time, etc. And it's just such an amazing Pokemon. You can use so many different moves on it. Obviously, Thunder, when used on Rain, and Inpower Ice are, non-negotiable staples. In theory, you could use Inpower Flying, by the way, but trust me, you don't want to go down that road unless you're on a very, very particular team that really, really, really hates Celebi. And that can't fit U-turn and doesn't mind lacking ice. It's just it's a 1 in 1,000 hypothetical there. But yeah, Thunder plus Ice, the Bolt Beam. Then Focus Blast is still really good to hit the Ferrothorn, the Excadrill, maul that Tyranitar, especially if it's not Choppleberry. You know, threaten a mammal swine on the switch, but Grass Knot can also work well for the aforementioned mammal swine. Hits Chapel Tyranitar just as hard the first time. It's able to hit Hippowdon, Tuakeo Gastrodon, and I believe kill or Tuakeo at worst Seismitoad as well. Nasty Plot is great. You know, you Nasty Plot on the switch into a Celebi or a defensive Latios or a Hippowdon, and you should be able to win that 1v1 transaction against what would be a check tiers, but you know they're expecting a lot of attackers, so it puts you in a pickle. Obviously, U-turn is a really good option as well, hitting things like Latios, and Celebi, and switching Celebi in particular. Pairs nicely with the pursuit Pokemon like Scizor. You know, agility is great to sweep offense. You do have to watch out for something like an Ice Shard or Extreme Pursuit from Dragonite. Ice Shard obviously from Mammal Swine, but in the right context, in the right sequence, it goes a long way. Substitute is cool for, you know, the occasional Toxic, or more likely just head prediction. Oh, they have a Gliscor out. They could Protect. See what I want to go for. They can try and switch out. I don't know what they're going to switch out to. It could be a Pokemon with Focus Blast. Could be Pokemon with Thunder. I don't know. Someone click Substitute. That type of plays. Yeah. You even see Protect. Protect is really cool because not only do you live forever, you gain lefties in rain, but also if you pair it with like a Pursuit Scizor, you'll oftentimes see people bring in Latios or Alakazam and then double switch it out, predicting they'll switch to the Pursuit Pokemon or a Fodder and then the Pursuit Loop, and suddenly you get that Thunderous Teen again. That's another chance to really do a ton of damage to them, or get a paralysis on Latios in the switch, which is oftentimes kind of seen as game over. Whatever it may be, obviously Thunderous Tea is just an amazingly threatening Pokemon. I mean, we haven't even mentioned a couple of the options that we've seen. You know, I mean, people have used Choice Scarf on it. I mean, people have used Yachi Berry or Citrus Berry. Yachi Berry is cool for Ice Shard and random HVXs in the mirror. You know, Citrus Berry is cool for if you're using it on Sand Team, or if you're like paranoid about getting chipped down, you want to, you know, bait the health. People run slow, especially on agility and bulky sets. People run fast if you're using All Attacker or Nasty Plot oftentimes. You know, you'll often see like fast with like some special attack taken away to live a Scarf Latios Draco or your Toad Latios Draco. I think it requires like 80 EVs between HP and special defense on that. It's nothing too substantial. Truth be told though, and I know I'm going over the time limit I set on myself again, Thunderous Tea is the premier special attacker in the metagame that's not a Psyche type, or Keldeo, I say. Yeah, it was very particular in how I said that, I guess I put it. Moving along though, speaking of Psyche type, is right next after, you know, firmly in the top 15 is going to be Reuniclus. Reuniclus recently suspect tested in Black and White. Oof, I need water. Crazy, talking so long. Oof. Anyway, Reuniclus recently suspect tested, did not get banned. It's not particularly close, but understandably why. It is very polarizing. It doesn't truly counter a Jackaton. It's good into status, you know, so that makes it great into Pokemon like a Toxic Chansey or Blissey, a Tentacruel, for example, or if it's like Flame Orb or already burnt, you know, it's able to switch into things like sorry, I lost my train of thought, a Thunderwave Clefable as well. But what's really good about it is it sweeps with Calm Mind, you know, being able, again, immune to status, immune to residual damage from entry hazards or sand, or, you know, get aforementioned Toxic Burn. That's huge, and that suddenly allows it to be healthy, and it's a naturally cool Pokemon too. You know, it has high special attack, high HP, so you pump into the physical defense, and suddenly it's really good. Personally, I've been running a standard Calm Mind set, but with Flame Orb, so that way Thunder Wave from a Latios, from a Jirachi, from a Clefable, from a Celebi, from a Ferrothorn can't impact it. Flame Orb already does it, and if you try and, you know, switch in your counter, you do fear tricks, but I just run on a standard Calm Mind set, so people have some pause before going to a Tyranitar against it, a Jirachi against it, and that can buy you a free Calm Mind or even a free kill potentially. And that goes such a long way in these transactional, you know, defense games, where finding the right trades and openings and switch patterns goes a long way towards being, you know, victorious ultimately. With this said though, offensive Trick Room Reuniclus still good into offense, but at a low point. Coverage wise, you know, you're never going to be perfect. Psychic Focus, Psychic Ice, or even Thunder Ice, or I guess Thunder Focus can be used. I wouldn't personally use that. That sounds really risky. Can't hit moves. But yeah, I mean, you'll even see Signal Beam on occasion as well. Reuniclus, you know, very, very good, very practical, but it doesn't cover a ton on team building checklists, not like a true counter check to things. It always has to be watching out for a a overly power corrupt Pokemon like an Excadrill and Sand, or a Specs Latios, or a Volcarona. And it always has to be watching out for Trick in Encore. A Trick from a Latios, or a Trick from a Rotom Wash, if you're not expecting it. An Encore from Politoed. Encore disrupted from it. And then that's not to mention, the Crunch Pursuit, Mind Game, Tyranitar as well. They can really cut its lifespan short. Although Crunch only does a little over half, you're still very scared if you switch on a Pursuit, or you stay in a Crunch and you don't kill it, it gets dicey quickly. Pivoting to Gliscor. Gliscor is the third ranked ground I have. You could definitely put Garchomp ahead of it. You probably could argue putting Mamoswine ahead of it too, but personally I wouldn't, just because in my eyes balance is a little better than the Mamoswine offense archetypes we see right now. I think it's more just on placement and preference, and like kind of your personal agenda, if you will, in the confines of the metagame. I find myself using more Gliscor. There are definitely a ton of more offensive-oriented players that are going to put Garchomp ahead of it, and Mamoswine on equal ground, and I can't fault you. It's certainly behind Landorus T. It's certainly behind Excadrill, though, and no matter what, it's how you chop it. It's always going to be a top, let's say, 5 ground type. It's never going to be a top 2 ground type. Gliscor essentially has what you could argue is Magic Guard. It does take rocks damage, but it heals it instantly with Poison Heal, and Protect could double that healing as well if your time things right. It has Toxic Orb, so it's a good status. The caveat, of course, being that you do have to, get it in safely, get the first turn, oftentimes seen as a lead, but that lead you put it on the back foot. You could give a free setup turn, a free substitute, a free stealth rock on that turn, so you do have to be very careful. With this in mind, though, Gliscor is awesome. It's really able to be part of those switch loops with something like a Clefable or a Reuniclus, or if no rocks are up, a Skarmory. On those bulky teams that can prolong games, if you find right openings, it could run utility moves like Knockoff and Toxic, or it could run Swords Dance sets. Swords Dance sets, especially with Ice Fang, can fish for the right sequence. You get a freeze or a flinch and right thing, suddenly you can break through, and it's hard to one-shot if you're not using a super effective special attack, and even then, you can EV to live like a Scald from Politoed, or an HP Ice from Reuniclus, or even anything from Rotom Wash as well. So yeah, it depends on the set. Personally, I've been running faster and more physically defensive oriented, just to combat something like an Excadrill or even a non-HP-based Terrakion, for example. But with that in mind, there are also special defensive Swords Dance applications that we've classically seen as well. It pairs super well with something like a Magnezone, and also does nicely with just things like Swords Dance Excadrill. You overwhelm the Skarmory, you outlast the Rotom Wash. A lot of ways to do it. Stealth Rock is pretty good on it, as it's able to threaten a balloon Starmie with U-turn while beating down an Excadrill 1v1, and not like Tentacle could really switch in repeatedly to it either. So yeah, and HP Ice isn't very common on Fortress either, so while it's going to get spikes up on you, you can Earthquake it down and eventually beat it, especially if you're knockoff. Moving on, Garchomp is an awesome Pokemon. Obviously, he's one of my favorites, as you see from my avatar, perhaps. I'm going to move the... Yeah, okay. Garchomp's awesome Pokemon. Swords Dance is all the rage right now. Choice Scarf used to be one of the best, when the metagame was more offensively focused, less Skarmory teams, less bulky teams. It was just that guy good. With that in mind, though, still very good. Yachi, Focus Sash, Lumberry, all deserve a shout. Mixed Chomp, also known as Chain Chomp, very good too. Swords Dance, you could either run Outrage, Earthquake, of course, Swords Dance, and then one of Fire Blast or Stealth Rock, depending on your team. Personally, I've got a sweet spot for fitting rocks on like a Sash Terrakion and running Fire Blast to surprise a Skarmory, or hit a Ferrothorn, or even catch something like a Bronzong on the switch in without committing to running Swords Dance, then Outrage and basically trading your life for it. Because once you click Outrage, it's kind of like a suicide mission, and yeah, it's going to be a worthwhile suicide mission if you could take down a Landorus T, or a Gliscor, or a chipped Skarmory, or whatever it may be, because your teammates are oftentimes going to be other physical attackers, the Scizors, the Dragonites, the Terrakions of the world, and you see those in the type of why those offense teams a ton, and that trade pays off 9 out of 10 times, but oftentimes it is a suicide mission, and that's fine, but if you can negate the need for do that with Fire Blast, that certainly is helpful too, and that depends on your team composition. So yeah, I mean, Garchomp's still great. Yachi and Sash can kind of give it a pseudo ability to one time over check a Thunderous T on Rain, which can flip that matchup. Yachi also nice for Alakazam too, which if you could break that fast early, you're going to do very well when you've got priority options like Bullet Punch, Mach Punch, Extreme Speed, Ice Shard that fit on those offenses. So yeah, Rotom Wash, probably a surprising A pick. Puts it at 4. It puts it at 15th in the metagame, and I think that's about accurate. In my eyes, Rotom W is one of the most practical Pokemon in the metagame. It had seen much worse times in the past. Sorry, just repositioning myself. It had seen much worse times in the past when it ran, into trouble with the uptick in Gastrodon. We saw, obviously, before Sleep Ban, especially, but even more recently than that, Amoonguss being good. Seismitoad has a team or two that's good, and it sucks into Celebi, and, you want to do so many things with it, and you can't. But what really, started uptrending it is it checks Excadrill, it checks Mamoswine, and it's able to kind of live forever with Pain Split. I've been running Scarf Trick with Pain Split, and it's been so amazing. The bulky teams, you're able to trick a Blissey, a Celebi, whatever the hell, a Clefable, and that Pokemon is essentially limited all game long if you don't run a knockoff user or screw up somehow. And then couple that with the fact that you come in repeatedly on a Skarmory, you force in a Blissey, a Chansey, a Clefable, you do more than leftovers can heal, especially if stands up and negates those leftovers. And then you start a loop, and if you get low because of Stealth Rock or taking a Seismic Toss or a resisted attack because you resist so many different attacks or whatever it may be, then you can Pain Split up, and you Pain Split with low base HP into Pokemon with high base HP like a Clefable or a Blissey or Chansey. That's huge. Suddenly, despite only having Pain Split as recovery, you're stalling out their recovery moves. You're forcing net positive sequences repeatedly. It goes such a long way. I'm a bit salty towards Rotom W because I had it crit in my Soul Wind series, which thankfully I still managed to win, and then I had it froze to eliminate me from Black White Cup, but whatever. I'm still Rotom W-nator to the death, and it's amazing Pokemon. Utility sets are great too. Roll compression, that's huge. Personally, in utility, running a little more speed lately. Outrun a Swords Dance Scizor is huge. You don't want to die to a +2 superpower just because how common Scizors become. Potentially being able to outrun something like a Substitute Mamo or a Swords Dance Gliscor can come in handy too, but that does require more investment. You got to be careful there. We've also seen an uptick in offensive utility. Rotom W, I got Merc game 2 against Solwyn by a HP Fire set. You bluff, you run Resto Chesto or Expert Belt or whatever you want. I even have ran in the past Eject button on a slower Rotom W, pairing it with Pursuit or pairing it with a Specs Lottie Band Tarak type on a all-out offensive team. Not bad as well. But yeah, no, there's a ton of different ways to use Rotom W. In my eyes, it's one of the best game flow Pokemon of all time, and it really puts that to display the most in Black White Overused. Now we're down to a rank after talking for almost an hour. Okay, we're probably gonna have to keep it 10 minutes per rank at this point. So let's get going. Jirachi, you'd think it'd be very good because it counters a Reuniclus and it's able to do very well into Latios and other psych types like Alakazam is probably the best single Pokemon into. But with this in mind, it does have some cardinal sins. It's weak to status like Burn and Paralysis. It's very weak to Spikes and doesn't beat Spikers as well. Kind of has awkward synergy with Excadrill too, so you gotta be particular with it. Somehow Jirachi still finds his way into usage a ton on offensive teams and even on some sand and rain teams as well. Stealth Rock utility, Choice Scarf, it's probably, if not the best Scarfer in the metagame, a top 3 Scarfer in the metagame, no matter how you cut it. With Rotom W being there, Latios being there, Drill being there. Or top 5 is very, very worst. But I think others would rank it above a Scarf Rotom W and maybe above a Scarf Latios as it stands. So yeah, it's a top Scarfer. And then you'll see combined sets or mixed attacking sets or whatever it may be. The specially defensive classic set that we see a ton in other generations too can be good too. So yeah, Jirachi is great. Scizor, another steel type that does nicely into the Psyche types. It has Pursuit. I invented the Swords Dance Pursuit set on Smurf offense to initially cut down on the amount of Pokemon Scarf Latios could revenge skill. Nowadays, it works similarly. It's able to do that. It's able to function as a Pursuit Trapper like Choice Scizor while still being a Swords Dance Scizor. You're also able to use that as coverage to beat something like a Jellicent if you're quicker than it. There's a lot of different ways to skin a cat, but truth be told, Scizor has really thrived. It does very well on rain teams, but also it probably does the best on those wireless offensive teams, be it a dedicated lead team and kind of a flowcharty team like Smurf, or more of a bulky offense, a drag mag, can function all across the aisle. Personally, I think Choice Scarf Scizor is garbage, doesn't even beat Reno Nicholas, doesn't have enough power to get enough kills, Pursuit is very weak, but Swords Dance Scizor, very, very good. It's almost always able to force a kill. Swords Dance Roost is pretty good too. Doesn't even always need Pursuit, depending on the team, obviously. Even Quick Attack Scizor is pretty cool too, in my eyes. Won an SPL game because of that once. But yeah, I mean, Scizor is great. Band Scizor is good too. Definitely a Pokemon that fits in the top 20 for me, and in A-. Mamoswine, a Pokemon that you could easily rank above these two Pokemon, but in my eyes, hasn't necessarily been seeing the most favorable metagame conditions just because of the uptick in things like the aforementioned Rotom Wash, and also Bronzong hanging around, Slowbro seeing some okay usage, Balloon Starmie is better than ever, so yeah, but Ice Shard is still super good. We see a metagame where a lot of faster Pokemon are Ice, if not 4 times, then 2 times. I mean, of course, you have the Dragonites of the world and the Garchomps of the world, but let's not forget Landorus Team Gliscor in that category too. And then you hit Latios super effectively. You're able to easily break this action, do about half to a Alakazam. It's Tornadus and Thundurus as well. Honestly, it's pretty good in terrain teams just because you can't switch into the dual stab. But yeah, I mean, Mamoswine, great dual stab. Sucks that it's hazard vulnerable. It definitely sucks that it doesn't have the best base speed, but those are traits you can work around. Sorry, it was just, let's see here. Yeah, okay, we still have time left. I'm looping this, right? Yeah, whatever, we're fine. Dragonite, a Pokemon that actually was considered like low-key suspect tier early in Black White 1 when it got multi-scale. Definitely isn't there now. It is a victim of hazards, it's a victim of sand, it's a victim of being almost forced to run Lumbear in a lot of teams as well, but it's still very good. I checked the Volcarona for sure, I checked the Breloom, and also just at +1, it's almost always able to force a kill, be it with a Fire Punch or whatever it may be. In Steel types, it could be Earthquake, Superpower, whatever. It's awesome, and I can't stress enough how great a Pokemon Dragonite is. It's very practical, but at the same time, it does struggle. It isn't necessarily the easiest Pokemon to use when not supported. It mandates Rapid Spin. It can't really be used on sand teams too well. There's definitely not a statute limit, I was going to say that. There's definitely a limited set of circumstances where Dragonite can thrive in, on those weatherless offensive teams, i.e. Smurf types, on those rain teams as well, be it with Choice Band or Dragon Dance. Of course, Choice Band Extreme Speed being just a classically good revenge killing tool for a slow Pokemon, and Outrage can kind of force trades if you're not facing a Skarmory. But, it also is something that can be a revenge shield, especially whatever Outrage locks. You have things like Ice Shard on Mamo, a Scarf Latios can revenge kill it. A Scarf Drill after pretty much more than 20% chip can revenge kill as well. So, it's a good Pokemon. It definitely has a lot of, able to get a kill plus potential. It's able to fulfill some things in the team building checklist as well, Ground Immunity, Volk Jack, Breloom Shack, but it's not like a world beater. It's certainly not a sweeper, and the sub DD bulky DD sets almost mandate you using Magnezone, and that is pretty much a full fish in my eyes. So yeah, up and down. Tentacruel, a Pokemon that would have been like A+, almost right next to a Politoed type Pokemon, before it now finds itself in the middle of A-. It's seen much better days. The increase in Excadrill takes a pie chart out of it. The increase in Starmie takes pie chart out of it as a spinner, especially in rain teams with Starmie. But also, Jellicent's seen a big uptick in play. You look at the root cause analysis. Aside from Skarmory, all the other common hazard setters nowadays, it beats. Beat it. Landorus doesn't normally get 1v1 bad. It gets owned by Garchomp. Ferrothorn, especially with Raw Spray being used more and more, beats it. Hippowdon changes the weather, does 85 with Earthquake, and even if he's Scald Burn, it probably doesn't get beaten 1v1 because your Scald and Sand doesn't do enough. It should be able to beat Chansey or Blissey with Toxic, but if it's Thunder Wave, it's tough. So yeah, I don't think Tentacruel is as good as it once was. I do think there was a time when it was like one of the most annoying Pokemon for offers to face. I still think Rain Dish and Rain is good, but not great. Moving past that, Celebi, a Pokemon I have higher than almost everyone in my eyes. If you do not have a Latios on a sand team, it's probably going to end up running Celebi plus Excadrill. Excadrill, mandated. Obviously, this Pokemon is huge Spike bait, but Nasty Plot Celebi almost invalidates a certain archetype or two of rain teams. You're going to have to either run like a U-turn Thundurus, run a Scizor, run a specific Jirachi set, or you're going to be SOL. You're going to be Shadow Lucky against it. And that's huge. It also does very well into bulky teams, especially if it's like not a toxic Chansey or Blissey situation. You can just slowly whittle away at stall teams, and they oftentimes don't have the ability to beat you. Natural Cure is such an amazing ability on it, and it's a Pokemon that is Pursuit weak, but is able to 1v1 Tyrant Power with a Nasty Plot and a switch in, especially if it's running Leaf Storm. But even if it's Giga Drain and if it doesn't get crit by Crunch, you should win the 1v1 if you MP on a switch in. Some Baton Pass variants are solid as well, and defensive profile on it is probably the main selling point. It's able to naturally check Rotom Wash, non-HP Bug Keldeo, non-Signal Beam Alakazam, all great into, while also manhandling a Breloom, and it's able to 1v1 things like Starmie, which even if it Ice Beams on a switch could potentially still be beaten. It is able to sit on a Powdon. We've seen things like 310 or 311 speed HP Ice to surprise Landorus T, which is trying to revenge kill the future, and ends up getting killed, flips the whole game script. There's a ton of different ways to do it. Yeah, it's unfortunately bad into something like a Scizor Flex HP Fire or the right Jirachi set. Weak to Ice Shard, although it's only going to do 45-50%. It is Volcarona food, I get it. It's U-turn weak, I understand. Celebi's never going to be a top 10 Pokemon in Black-White, but it is close to its peak right now, if you're not counting days where Black-White was played as the main generation back 10 years ago when Celebi was actually like really good. It's a top, let's say 20, 25 Pokemon right now, probably close to 25, and I do expect it to stay there. So yeah, I think Celebi's really good right now. I think it fits onto a ton of sand teams, and I do think it fits onto some fringe rain teams as well. Jellicent, mainly sticking around due to the fact that it's very good on those Skarm Jelly teams, which have seen more and more usage, and another part of why Skarmory is higher up. We touched on that before. It's okay on like bulky Hippo Spike teams too, which oftentimes use Skarmory, but now there's a Suicide lead. It's able to shut down Tentacruel. Admittedly, its matchup when not using like Air Balloon is a little more unfortunate into Excadrill. Not amazing into electric move Starmie either, albeit not horrendous. We initially saw it run Shadow Ball a bit more to maul a Cloyster at +2. Nowadays, I think it's back to Nightshade plus Wisp. We do see that one classic bulky like Fortress Sand, Blissey Sand team that runs Rest Jellicent to sit on Tentacruel, sit on Toxic Keldeo. Cool application of it, but applications of that are the exception more so than the rule. Really, only one or two teams that do that. So, yeah, rounding out two dynamic win conditions with high highs and low lows, Terrakion and Volcarona. Terrakion is just an all-time great black-white physical attacker, but it comes with its flaws. You wish you could run in Power Ice with Life Orb or run Choice Band and Swords Dance all at once. Truth be told, Terrakion provides no defensive value aside from checking Volcarona when in Sand. And it isn't like the be-all end-all of breaking. Its dual stab is great with the Stone Edge plus Close Combat, but it doesn't have the 1 AKO power that you'd wish it did. But it's still very good and very hard switching to. And for slower teams, it's a challenge to deal with the Swords Dance. And for faster teams, if you're switching into Choice Band, it's tough too. And it's not like they love switching into non-Choice Banded either. Volcarona, the matchup Moth, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. It's a Pokemon that, without with gems in it here, would probably be banned. Without gems, it's not able to get over the Tyranitar hump as easily. Still very, very good. Very support reliant, but very high ceiling Pokemon. And now we're on our way to B+, and take a very brief break to have another drink of water here. Bear with me. Hey guys, I'm back. This video is crazy long. We've already got all of B, all of C, D, F. Alright, we're gonna do this a little bit quicker now. Clefable, actually, one of the Pokemon I kind of want to expand on, ironically enough. Clefable is good. It has Magikarp, and it's not weak to Pursuit, which is pretty much the only Pokemon you could say that about. It's immune to rocks, spikes, sand, hail, status. Huge. But it's weak to fighting moves, it doesn't have that fairy typing. Physical bulk, not great. Doesn't really do any damage, so I get it. For years, it was slept on. I think Dice kind of tried it out, and then it gained some traction, and now it's like pretty cool. Knockoff, very, very useful move. Thunder Wave, great. it's got an ice beam to get Gliscor, which otherwise doesn't doesn't mind the Fable at all. Can run Encore or Stealth Rock. In theory, there's plenty of other moves. I ran Amnesia on it to use it as a pseudo check to things like a Volcarona, which if it's not Modest Life Orb, can't beat it. You wish you had that extra bulk like a Chansey or Blissey so you could wall things like a Starmie and Rain or Hydro Pump Spam or Thunder from and Focus Blasts from Thunder's Tea. You don't. So, but you trade that off with the ability to do such good in game flow. Part of those loop switches with the Gliscor and the Rare Nicholas, able to really disrupt things, force those knockoffs, force those people to take the residual damage repeatedly from the teammates, and it becomes such an integral cog on those bulky teams with Pokemon like Hippowdon. Or others, but we're going to be discussing Hippowdon next. Hippowdon's actually pretty close to its peak in Black-White right now. It definitely saw some days where it was discarded or really hard to use, especially once Stoutland got banned due to Sand Rush going. It was, a casualty of circumstance there, as it paired nicely with Stoutland, but nowadays, Hippowdon, pretty good. It's an alternate way of providing sand while having recovery. Still does take spikes, which you don't love, like Torrentar, you don't love that, but it's able to, check Nasty Plot, Grass Knot, Thunderous Tea. It's able to survive any hit from Alakazam, even if it's Grass Knot, and do that. It is able to disrupt the flow of a Rain or a Sun, or I guess even a Hail to a lesser degree. Like Skarmory, it's not really a 1v1 type Pokemon, but it is able to live a multitude of hits and get those rocks up. It's able to beat Excadrill 1v1. It's able to beat a Tentacruel 1v1, even if it gets burnt, honestly. Starmie doesn't do as well on 2, but if Balloon's broken, then you live a Hydro Pump from full and Earthquake's doing 60, so have fun there. Again, not a 1v1 Pokemon, but a very practical Pokemon due to sand, due to the ability to have Toxic or Whirlwind, due to the ability to be a rocker that beats Spikers, that beats Spinners, so yeah. Magnezone, tough. Cloyster being banned actually really hurt Magnezone in my opinion, as those type of Cloyster weatherless offenses Magnezone was very nice on. With that in mind, it's still very good. I actually consider putting it in A-. Still able to beat Ferris, still able to beat Skarmory, but it's kind of a useless team spot in some other cases. People try to find utility. Oh, we're going to run Choppleberry so it could surprise Keldeo or Drakion or Breloom. Cool. Oh, we're going to run Air Balloon and flip the extra matchup. Cool. Risk Flinch. Oh, we're going to run Spax and just be a nuke. Cool. Oh, we're going to run Scarf State Speed. Cool. All these things are cool, but it's not a great Pokemon. It's just able to trap specific Pokemon that we see a lot. So, reactionary metagame measure, cool. You kind of playing 5v6 or 5v5 in some games, and that's not awful. So, yeah. Abomasnow, Hail has actually kind of, ever since DICE used the Hail offense, and now we're seeing bulk Hail teams, so we've seen random Walrein Hail. I actually don't think I included Walrein in F tier. It probably should be in D or F somewhere. Yeah, no. Tough nuggies. But yeah, obviously outside the Mandate Spin, you see Starmie or Drill or Fortress on these teams. Fortress I think is overkill, but yeah, it's hard to switch into between Blizzard, Leech, potential for Hidden Power Fire, Earthquake, but also able to be able to disrupt opposing weather, force that hail damage, which is everything besides Abomasnow, Magikarp, Pokemon, and Mamoswine, which is pretty cool. That Hail Chip is very, very effective, more so than even Sand Chip, which is a big selling point, underrated selling point. You think, oh, why Abomasnow? Hail Chip on opponents is huge. That's part of why I'm able to check non-HP Fire, Rotom W, non-HP Fire, Starmie as well, 1v1 most ground types too, be it with Ice Shard or Blizzards. Yeah, good underrated Pokemon. I think fits into the top 30 of Black-White, and it's funny, if you told me a year or two ago Abomasnow would be above Breloom, I'd be crazy, but there's 4 Pokemon between the two, so go figure. Times change, my friends. Next up, Fortress. Fortress, good Pokemon in the sense that it has spin, access to, Hazard. It's a bad Pokemon in the sense that it loses everything. Earthquake for Excadrill is cool. It's able to kind of micromanage the Hazard game in the short term. Really wishes it had recovery. It's okay with Wish support, I guess. Good in short transactional bursts, not good in the long term though, in my eyes. Not an elite steal. Kind of sucks that it takes damage from what feels like everything under the sun aside from poison, but not bad either. So yeah, we ball. Latios, obviously harder to use in a Latios centered metagame. It does the same things, but it's weaker less potent. It does have Healing Wish, so you know that's the niche if you want to run a Specs or Scarf Latios. You're running Healing Wish. Utility, be it Culber with Healing Wish, or maybe a bulky Roar set. All fine and well, viable but not amazing. Suffers the same Pursuit vulnerability. Definitely vulnerable to like a Toxic or Thunder Whip at the wrong time as well. It doesn't have the same 1v1 nuke potential, but it does, you know, do better into Pokemon like a Keldeo, which it can definitely check pretty nicely. Heatran, kind of one of the Fallen Soldiers, Black-White, traditional special defensive Heatran, is pretty much no more entirely, just due to being a liability into the Gliscors and Reuniclus of the world. With that in mind, Magmatran, particularly with Balloon, is great into offense. You have the Revenge Kill Scizor, check even HP ground Volcarona if Balloon is intact there. If you have HPS or Dragon Pulse, you do really nicely into Dragonite and Garchomp too if Balloon is still intact. So yeah, it has a lot of 2v1 potential into like Smurf teams. A good disruptor on some teams, you know, the Sunny Day plus Solar Beam set's not bad either, but the conventional special defense sets, the old school Scarf set, not very good. Takes spikes, dies before it really makes much progress, and not good into the abundance of Magic Guard and Gliscor we're seeing. Rounding out B+, we've got two really dynamic physical attackers. Well, I guess Gem can be considered a mixed attacker. You'll see Ice Beam on the Free Shock sets, or even specs on, you know, random teams here and there, but Choice Band Kyurem or Choice Scarf Kyurem, Bright Potent Scarf can just clean out offenses if the Steel types are chipped, and Band even into something like a Skarmory is going to do over 40% without Red Knot Trench, and it pretty much kills everything that doesn't resist it. Very good, but rock weak, and you'd like it to be a little faster. And Breloom, you know, Technician, Nuke, Losing Spore, hurt it, but still very hard to switch into if you don't have like an Amoonguss or a Xatu, I suppose, or something like that, between Bullet Seed, Low Sweep, or Superpower, and Mach Punch. And then Poison Heal sets, nice status absorption. Sucks to weak to hazards like Sand, but you know, it's not bad. Able to really check Rotom Wash, for example. Good in the Politoed, so yeah, depends. So there, I'm just gonna take another break for a moment here. Bear with me, and then we'll get to B. Oh boy, we are back, guys. Sorry, I definitely tested my stamina. Did not think I'd be an hour 16 into this video, and only approaching B rank. So we're again continue to expedite that pace a little bit, but of course don't want to skip out on the details. So yeah, Tornadus, good rain Pokemon, not great. Mono flying, has some pros and cons. You know, obviously you're weak to Stealth Rock, weak to Ice, Electric, Rock type moves, and don't really have many resistances, but you are immune to ground. Can come in handy. Hurricane, awesome move. Focus Blast, good complement. U-turn works too, but you know, you wish you were faster than the Starmie, the Alakazam of the world, but outrunning Lottie and Keld is still cool. I'd say it's kind of a little cheesier on Rain. Actually, it's not bad if you can fit like a taunt type of move on it. You know, Specs is pretty hard to justify right now. Hurricane and Tyranitar doesn't really do more than like a 20-24%. And then you just end up losing 1v1 and kind of just trading your Tornadus and hoping it hits 3 times in a row just to get enough chip on it to where your Tyranitar isn't like 2 for 1. Honestly though, Tornadus, you know, it's B for a reason. It's got a lot going for it. It's a very strong Pokemon, but it has limitations. It obviously only really works on Rain unless you're running like that old bulk up acrobatic set, which doesn't work as well without gems being allowed to. So yeah, tough. We got the 2 Pokemon that are water and ground type with the ability to negate water type moves in Seismitoad and Gastrodon, ranked next to each other purposefully. Gastrodon is a great Pokemon, but it really sucks into spikes. And while it is awesome into non-grass knot, Thundurus T, and more notably rather, Starmie and Rotom Wash, it doesn't like status either, and it is really a liability into Magic Guard Pokemon like Grass Knot Alakazam, or perhaps even a Clefable, Calm Mind, Reuniclus. You know, it's very hard to justify fitting it on the teams right now. Seismitoad actually is on one or 2 popular teams despite being the historically worst Pokemon. It gets rocks, it gets refresh, it gets knockoff, but it doesn't have recover. You know, again, it's probably capped at being like a B or B plus Pokemon, but it's not bad. It's similarly pretty good into Rotom W. Not as good into Starmie, but still pretty good, and it's able to really sit on Tentacruel and Politoed all day too if they're utility sets. So yeah, my main advice would be, you know, You want to fit rocks, you want to fit scald, you want to fit knock, you want to fit earthquake, you want to fit refresh. You can't fit them all. Try and fit another rock around your team, or really assess if you want earthquake to get that immediate damage on a tentacle, that greater damage on a Jirachi, that ability to trade hits with Starmie or not, and there's always the ability to dish knockoff too. But yeah, I mean, Seismitoad, more utility, better, more practical right now. Gastrodon, historically better Pokemon with recovery. Pick your poison, I guess. Speaking of pick your poison, we're gonna pick Amoonguss here in B tier. Obviously, big hit losing Spore, but also doesn't have to rely on Sleep Talk a lot. It's still kind of funny. Still kind of willing to switch into between Stabs, Hidden Power, and Stun Spore, but not great. Spikes kind of negate Regenerator a little bit there, as well as Sand damage, but still good into Breloom, really good into Grounds if you're able to carry HP Ice, or Pharaoh if you carry HP Fire, and a Keldeo check as well, and that's really the full extent. Bronzong, kind of this old school turned new school-ish technology to check Psychic type, Skill Squat plus Toxic. Very good into a Latios, at least being able to take Trick, and also one of the best answers to Alakazam. But truth be told, while this Spike Immune, the damage on it is permanent without recovery. Can't really fit Rest on it either. It's okay in Extra, but it's so easy to chip down. Truth be told, Bronzong is okay on these certain particularly fat teams that are proactive enough to where its lack of longevity isn't bad, but it feels like it's reliant on lefties and then protects, and it's just okay. Conkeldurr actually probably could justify being higher in B or even low B plus right now. It's trending, but historically it's taken a lot of hits. It used to be good in Black White 1 and never really recovered, especially not over the last 5 years until recently. Especially defensive bulk up sets, really not bad. All out attacking sets, limited. We've seen Evian have success with it, but yeah, Guts, very cool. It's got a couple coaches abilities. Yeah, I mean, Payback, cool move. Mach Punch, very helpful. Maul, Tyranitar, really good at 1v1ing things like Excadrill, Ferrothorn, too, but not necessarily able to 5v1 unless you're facing a really awkward team. Good into offense, really is hard to switch into for offense, so yeah. Blobs, Blissey, Chansey, fits on bulky teams. Blissey fits on some bulkier sand teams. He can run leftovers, at least doesn't really need to be expanded upon. Zatu really there because it mauls Ferrothorn and Skarmory. Good at stopping hazard play at least, but obviously not the best momentum Pokemon. Wouldn't even be close to an OU Pokemon ever if not for Magic Bounce. Has it, thankfully, so that's cool, but yeah, just a beneficiary of circumstance while not being a good Pokemon. Pursuit weak, mauled by special attackers, even most ground types, Landorus, HP Ice, Garchomp Outrage, Excadrill, Iron Hitter, Rock Slide can beat it. So yeah, I mean, it's not even good to Rockers per se, mostly good to Spikers, and then Risk Pursuit, and just okay stall option. Sunstall features Blissey or Chansey plus Zatu plus the next two Pokemon being Ninetales and Cresselia. You'll see Zatu on some sand or weatherless teams. You'll see Blissey and Chansey on specific rain teams, or Blissey on some sand teams, or Chansey on some weatherless teams. But Ninetales, probably Sun's the most common retention rate of those Pokemon. And Ninetales, when you see that, you'll see Cresselia. So yeah, Sun teams, Ninetales obviously the bringer of drought, like Politoed is for rain, and Cresselia beneficiary with Moonlight, and the owner's taking off sand or rain. And it's really good into offense. Cresselia, great at 75% healing plus Ice Beam, Thunder Wave, and either you run Psy Shock or you run Ambar Fire or Calm Mind or whatever it may be. It's definitely a good Pokemon into those matchups, but not so good into conventional sand. The Tar, Clef, Reuniclus, Drill type Pokemon. Slowbro, seems like it's good on paper except 1v1s, all these grounds and physical attackers, whatnot. Has Regenerator, Ice Beam can hit a lot of things 4 times, but truth be told, not the best typing. You want to use it. It also checks Keldeo, but it's got Scald Burn and Hazards, all these residuals. It just takes so much damage from everything that it feels like the metagame is just a little more power creep beyond it, if you will. And if there's a bit less spikes or a bit less sand or a bit less status, it might be a bit better like it was at points in Gen 6, and we're just not there. Second here, I think we get Salamence next, yeah. So Salamence, Moxie Scarf, pretty good. Dragon Dance, a bit better with gems, still can use Yachi or Lum, I guess. A faster Dragonite with Moxie snowballing, but loses out on multi-scale, loses out in the priority, so definitely a couple tiers below it. Scarf, really the best selling point. In theory, you know, a mixed set with like Hydro Pump and not bad as well. Although mostly outclassed by Garchomp, and Garchomp's like little brother, Flygon, which is immune to spikes and has roost, so I used to pick your poison in terms of those. Scarf, main selling point there. Arrow, probably higher than it ever was. It's been seeing more usage as like a suicide lead. Rocky Helmet's cool. It's been running like bulk with Crunch and Rocky Helmet, funny set. Yeah. Gyarados, you know, probably the last like win condition I could see myself using it like a serious level. Anything beyond this point is a little too niche, but not bad on rain. Natural gift sets are cool and weatherless. Intimidate and Moxie are two good abilities. It's able to soft check Excadrill and Landorus and Gliscor in theory, but it is weak to rocks. You know, Sand doesn't love facing. Ferrothorn is bad into. Rotom Wash it's horrible into. You know, list goes on. It's a tough bring. Weavile pretty much needs a eject button. It's got no bulk, but if they bring it in, especially if we can fit like beat up on it somehow, it's able to really disrupt the Psychic types. If it's a -2 Latios, or if it's a Sashbrook in Alakazam, it's going to be lights out for those Pokemon. Definitely was better in the age of gems. You know, you saw it in a lot of Lithos offenses with like a random eject button Pharaoh or Slowking on those, or like a hard offense. So it's just a choice band Pokemon that was there. You try and double it on the right turn, but even some Rains did it as well with like eject on Politoed. But truth be told, meh at best. It never really peaked. Zapdos, really good into offense, you know, with that Bullet Beam, potential Heat Wave coverage as well. Offensively on its own, it's probably worse Thunderous T, but it has, you know, better bulk, so you know, it's good into Excadrill, good into Landorus. Tyranitar never really carries like a move that can truly beat it, unless it's Rock Slide plus Earthquake and you catch Earthquake in a Roost turn, or you run Thunder Wave plus on it as well. But yeah, I mean, you know, that aside, it's pretty crappy in the sand, not good into the Magic Guard Pokemon at all. Rain teams might struggle to switch into it, but can muscle past it. You know, boosted water moves, you know, Thunderous T, you know, Latios do enough damage to it. Keldeo can like one-shot it in rain, so yeah, limited. Again, Mew, Jack of all trades, master of none. There's no real reason to stand out. Stallbreaker set, you know, just it doesn't do enough damage. Just hard to justify. We saw a German team with it in Black White Cup. Kyurem, the spec set or scarf sets on Hail, cool, but you know, at the mercy of clicking the right move. If there's ice resists, and you know, once you can't spam Blizzard, it gets tough and it's easy to disrupt Hail. And you know, pressure sets on Rain, really good, but high ceiling, low floor. You know, it's a big fish, and that's kind of where we're at this point. And now we're gonna go to C+ here. Okay, and we're getting towards the bottom of the list, and I'm gonna try and fit all of, you know, C+, C, D, and F. So, but we're getting quicker and quicker as we go, of course, as we're already over an hour and a half into this video, I believe. Slowking, Hydreigon, Rotom, Azumarill, Ditto, Milotic, Scolipede, Gengar, Alligator, Frostlass, Moltres, and again, these are my personal rankings at this point. It's very subjective. Like, once you get past like B rank, it's, you know, touch and go to say the very least. Slowking, just special defensive wall. Unfortunately, it's very, very weak to Pursuit and Spike, so that's tough, but it's nice into Keldeo. It's able to sponge anything from Latios. Even Starmie, like, I don't think you took out with Thunderbolt on Weatherless, yeah, but Pursuit is just too good, and it isn't able to beat things like Reuniclus, and while it can wall Sash Alakazam, Orb Alakazam can potentially took out with the right moves, so you gotta be careful. Hydreigon, it's just like, you know, takes sand and rocks, and then you want to run Life Orb on it, you always gotta put the right move on it. It's like frail, it's slower. It's basically like a child version of Latios that's not weak to Pursuit, but is so much worse than everything else. Slightly similar but slightly less damage. You know, you wish you checked Keldeo. You wish you would resist fighting. You wish you had a lot of different things. You're not Pursuit weak, but everything else under the sun is worse, and it's a hard sell. It doesn't fit on the team comps. I think if Latios didn't exist, it'd be a lot better. It'd be a big breaker, and, you know, superpowers of Blissey or Clefable. Drop a Draco on the, you know, Gliscor or Landorus, Fire Blast into the Skarmory or Ferrothorn, etc., or Flamethrower or whatever, but, you know, just Pokemon with a lot of potential that never really lived up to it. Rotom, you might be seeing regular Rotom being like, huh, It's pretty good into Excadrill. Completely mauls Fortress. It's able to self-check a Gliscor and Landorus T as well. You run like Volt Switch, Will-O-Wisp, Pin Power Ice, and either Pain Split or Shadow Ball with Rocky Helmet. It's not bad. You know, it takes too much damage from everything. It's very fragile naturally, but it's got such a unique profile that's cool. I think we saw Pang and some other players use it. I think I actually faced Luthor using a Stolen Team from that with Black and White Cup Game 1 semifinals. Azumarill, Rain, you know, Choice Band or Splash Fight if you want to Toxic. You know, really just a water resist check. And do you have a Jellicent? Do you have a Celebi? Do you have you know, a bulky water resist, or is your water resist kind of fragile? Is it just a Latios? If so, you're going to take 1,000,000 damage from Waterfall coming in Rain. Aqua Jet, very good into offense as well. But yeah, it's just a water check durability test. Ditto, you know, we mainly see it on like Italian offenses, truth be told. It's not that great. It's able to really punish people who just spam setup moves, and that's about it, much like any other generation. Milotic, you know, Refresh, Scald was pretty good into offenses, especially with Ice Beam. Hypnosis back when sleep was allowed, not so much anymore. You know, the Magic Guard Pokemon, the Nicholas, the Clefable just sit all over it. It's able to soft check, you know, a ton of physical attackers, but in better days, definitely, you know, it probably would have been like B or even B plus at its peak about 2-3 years ago, but nowadays with the uptick in bulky teams and Spikes and Magic Guard, it's just not as good. Speaking of Spikes, Scolipede, in my opinion, a very underrated lead. Spikes and Toxic Spikes can Endeavor, Swarm, and Mega Horn. You know, it's actually like not a horrible Pokemon, all things considered. Like I'd say it's like similar to your Suicide Lead to Arrow, but Arrow provides rocks and a little more speed and taunt, so I differentiated it. Also, the usage on Arrow is way higher. In my opinion, Scolipede actually should see like some legitimate usage of Suicide Lead. It's just that's a very specifically carved out niche for one that doesn't give rocks. So yeah, I'd say C plus is probably its ceiling, and it's around there in my eyes, even though most people probably put it in C or D. Gengar, kind of Pokemon would always feel like should be a good OU Pokemon, but then just never like panned out in Black White. You know, we saw days where Utility Gengar was cool, Sub Split had some louder usage, you know, Taunt, Mysticar had to have some time to play. With the Protect, it's got Scarf Car, but man, you know, you just wish you could do this, that, and other thing. It's not strong enough. It's too weak to Pursuit. Gets one shot by everything. It doesn't one shot anything. So, you know, there's never really been a set to use it in a modern Black White, and it just kind of borders on irrelevant. And unfortunately, it's kind of on the wrong side of it right now. For Alligator, really underrated Pokemon in my eyes. A lot of people in one of the Black White Discords were talking about it. Kind of similar to Azumarill in terms of very strong water type, but unlike Azumarill, it has that crunch to Jellicent. It doesn't have the same pure power, if you will. So same hitting power, but you can run that Swords Dance, Aqua Jet, you know, Torrent. With the right bulk investments, you can take something like a Draco from Lottie and kind of kill it. But on the flip side, it really isn't going to be great into offense that could limit it. It doesn't get a ton of free turns. It's not durable. Hazard and status vulnerable. So, yeah, you know, it's okay. You know, if you use for Alligator, you're not going to be laughed out of town. It actually used to be really good in Black White 2 metagame. You know, like definitely surged for a year or two. Seen better times since then. Seen a lot worse times since then, and kind of seen one or two usages since then, like in recent year or two, that has at least put it on the map. But again, I even C plus feels like a stretch. I think most people would probably have it in C, so or even D. So yeah, Frostlass, kind of similar to Scolipede in that, you know, it's not a completely unviable Suicide Lead against utility with Taunt, Destiny Bond, can Wisp or Thunderwave something. Ton of other random options as well, but you're not really going to see those fit. Spikes are good, what can I say? Ghost type, Spin Block, good. Why not? Moltres, Shoka Classic, you know, the Forgotten Bird of Black and White, 4 times weak to rocks without having Quiver Dance makes it a tough sell, but hard to switch into those 2 stabs right now. Heatran especially doesn't exist. It really has awesome defensive profile into things like Extra and Landorus too, but it is still 4 times weak to rocks. It's just Moltres, so such is life there. Moving on to C rank. In a bit here. Am I even in the line? Oh. Yeah, we could do that. That's cool. All right. What a great video I've got going here. where was I? Oh, C-rank Jolteon, Smurf, and a couple other players used like it as like a fast Pokemon on rain before they realized it actually kind of soft checked. Non-Focus Blast, Thunderous T, HPS 2 kills it. You don't get 2 kills by HPS. Focus Blast is money to it, but obviously they both absorb electric attacks. Sucks that it's really awful in Pharaoh, but that is amazing speed tier, outruns Alakazams of the world. You know, can kind of pick. You know, the Bolt Beam is really good into offense that lacks Excadrill or Mamoswine, which, you know, with the Smurf team, for example, basically just has to like trade a Pokemon for it for priority chip to put it in the next priority range, and then come to Revenge later. So Starmie, interesting rain option. Sucks that it's weak to Spike. Sucks that it sucks into Pharaoh. Sucks that it sucks into both Mamo and Drill, so very particular. Toxicroak, old like OU Rain, like real legit Pokemon. People realize it wasn't as great anymore. Seen people use Fling recently to try and like get Reuniclus and Slowbro and Jellicent at +2. That's cool. Subtoxic had its day in the shine. You know, Sword Stance, Life Orb, Sucker Punch, Ice Punch was not a bad set. But, you know, people thought it checked Keldeo. It doesn't really check Keldeo too well, but kind of soft checks the stabs, I guess. You know, it's not an awful Pokemon by any stretch of the imagination, but it's very hard to use. And it has negative synergy with a Tentacruel, and while it works with Starmie, it's going to lead to having defensive holes. Tangrowth, Dice Pokemon. Dice really love Tangrowth. Really good into the ground types, but again, it has Regenerator, but it's kind of negated by spikes and sand and rocks, so you know, limited leash, but it is cool. And you know, the Garchomp and Landorus and others of the world, it just lacks the special bulk and is with spikes. Sigilif, Pokemon I've seen guys like Dragon and others use the Flame Orb plus Psycho Shift set, pretty cool there. Really able to thwart things like Tyranitar, Excadrill that you thought could do well into it. You get set up, and you know, if you don't have that trick, you don't have that really fast special attacker that can maul it, you don't have that Encore, then it can actually like really go to town and invalidate like maybe 10 to 20% of teams outright. But you know, another 30-40% of teams it's very bad into. So you know, it's a real major fish, but it's a high ceiling fish, and it's good to particular teams if you can find the right opponent. Alamola, just a wish patching bot, doesn't get flip turn, which obviously isn't even a move, so yeah, you know, you wish it could. Gothitelle being removed from the tier helped it. You know, Pasho was actually a big Alamola fan a couple years back, but never really came to fruition. Metagross, very fringe in black-white, not at the levels it is in ADV or DPP, unfortunately. I do like Lumberry with Explosion and Speed for slower than W as a lead variant on it, paired with Magnezone, so if you blow up into a Skarmory or Ferrothorn, it can get trapped after, and you kind of 2-for-1 plus rocks. But, it doesn't really check Latios. You know, you wish you could Pursuit in it, you wish you could run Agility on it. It's just, you know, very Magnezone reliant, very middling. You know, you wish you could run other Steel types. Not like Lucario, though the next Pokemon, Lucario, was seen as like the original cleaner of Black White OU, is actually very good in Black White 1, even early Black White 2. Sword Stance, Extreme Speed, Close Combat, and an Ice or Bullet or Crunch or whatever it may be. But truth be told, its best days definitely are behind it in DPP. You know, it doesn't love Landorus T existing. It doesn't kill enough at +2 with E-Speed. It's okay. Azelf, another suicide lead option, kind of a classic. Definitely a tier below Arrow right now, but it does get options. You know, it can start blowing things up, random HP Ice or Fire Blast, Thunder Wave. So it's got enough of a distinguished niche where it can be in C. Manchow actually used to be like a really good sand option as a Scarfer, or even Life Orb, you know, with like Fake Out and a HP Ice or Grass type, trying to Jellicent. Scarfshout, you know, good speed tier, but you know, it doesn't kill enough. It's very hard to lock the right move. It provides nothing defensively, so definitely way out of the metagame right now. Speaking of things out of the metagame, Suicune never really been in the Black White metagame. Actually better in UU, but Finchinator, you know, in theory could sit on the right rain team that lacks Encore and Politoed. You know, it's very good at like stalling specific PP as well. It's just, you know, Sand and Spike and like Ferrothorn and Random Jellicent. It's a tough sell. Omastar, Shell Smasher, underrated. Pretty cool coverage, pretty strong, but certainly harder to use. Getting to D rank now. Victini, just an option to nuke on Sun, similar to Darmanitan. Victini probably a bit better because it has better, you know, defensive utility, a couple more resistances, both with rocks. Yeah, V-Create does lower, and it's a bit less base attack, but also just bulky. I guess you could bluff like Final Gambit stuff too on it. Kingdra, used to use it on like weatherless teams to try and snipe Rain. It's not great by any stretch of the imagination. Doesn't even beat Rain because they typically have Tentacruel and Pharaoh and Polytoad that can take a hit or two from it. So yeah, Blastoise and Donphan, actually not horrible. Blastoise like low-key gives Kingdra some competition. Like Kingdra does soak up Toxic Spikes and resist fighting type, which is huge, but Blastoise has good physical bulk, can like beat grounds and stuff like that, but you wish you could run 8 different moves. You wish you could run Foresight with Rain Dish, and it just can't. So tough, but yeah, it's not awful. Donphan, like Loki has some niche over Drill because it's got Ice Shard and better physical bulk and access to knockoff, but it's just hard to fit. It's hard to justify. 99% of the time you want to run Drill. So yeah, Togekiss, we've seen some like paralysis teams. Nasty Plot Aura Sphere, not bad. Normal typing, not the worst, I guess. I don't know. Weak to rocks, weak to sand, weak to status, easy to Encore, Trick, Overwhelm. Tough sell. Scrafty pretty much only gets used on screen teams. Used to be okay in like Baton Pass before that got nuked as well. Scrafty is a pretty cool Pokemon. Metagross, by the way, also was good on Baton Pass. Yeah, Scrafty, cool Pokemon. Definitely more for lower tier Pokemon. Good with screens though. Get that like 2 or 3 dances up and has good coverage. Haxorus, the dragon that wishes it could. It's not weak to rocks. It's not 4 times weak to ice at least, but at the same time, it's just like, I wish it was faster. You wish it had like priority, and just doesn't have first impression. This generation doesn't exist, obviously. And, it's easy to revenge skill, like having it 1 kill most games. So, yeah. The Manatan, kind of like Victini, fast nuke for Sun, probably run Scarf on it in Sun teams, but weak to rock, not able to break past bulky waters. Just very limited overall. Sharpedo, Cleaner on Rain. McMegan used this back in like 2015, 2016. 2014, whatever it was, not bad, but it can't beat Pharaoh. Doesn't have the 1-hit kill power. Kind of reliant like Alakazam on everything being chipped down, but it doesn't fit into that role itself because it takes 1 million damage from everything, and it needs Life Orb and needs like Protect turns to give away. It's just not good. Lily, a player who's more known for current generations, actually played Black-White a lot with Flygon. Basically plays like a mixed Chomp, but it has access to Roost, and it ignores spikes, but it's very weak. It's only 80 base special attack, so only Garchomp, and only 100 base attack with Earthquake, so like you can't even like one hit a Tyranitar. Tough. I think you might be able to 2-kill Clefable with the right investment, but yeah, no, I don't love Flygon. Not really know your Pokemon this gen, like it is in 3 and 4. Bisharp used to be cool with Dark Jam. Nowadays, I guess you could run like a weird Sword Stance set. It is like the premier Sucker Puncher, but it's just not great. Pursuit might be cool for Psychics as well, but it's got no bulk. It's better once Dark becomes regular type and it gets knockoff in future generations, that boosted power, but that's just not the case this generation. Sableye, it's just like it's got no weaknesses. It hard walls Psychics plus Focus Blast from your Nicholas or Alakazam, and it has the ability to Spin Block and Prankster. All those tools are cool, but it's completely shit. It dies to every special attack that hits it neutrally, and even physical attackers can beat it if they have the ability to fort burn for 1 turn, or if they're strong enough. And it's just completely awful in game flow and doesn't actually really beat any spinners. So yeah, Magneton, it's just if you want to use a Magnezone, but you want to outrun something like a Starmie with Scarf, super niche. Empoleon, a cool rain Pokemon, in theory, like can tank hits from Latios and dish out super strong rain boosted damage. Good coverage as well, Ice Beam, Grass Knot, but nothing great. Weak to Spikes, weak to Ferrothorn. Can't really break past like a Tentacruel or an Encore Polytoad or whatever. So yeah, Kadabra. It's just like on those meme teams that like want to run Alakazam and Kadabra and just like eventually bust past things. It doesn't even get Focus Blast. It's very, very niche. Once in a million type Pokemon. Really only like a Megan special, similar to Devotion. A watered down Reuniclus, reliant on Eviolite. Doesn't get Focus Blast, but it can. If Reuniclus like trades with something, it can like work, I guess, but not great. Escavalier. If Hidden Power Fire didn't exist, it'd actually be pretty decent. It's not like the worst if Hidden Power Fire didn't exist into Latios or into Alakazam. It's pretty good to Reuniclus, but it takes spikes. It's complete Magnezone food, and it's 4 times weak to fire, and it doesn't like taking rain boosted attacks or just facing rain in general. Like Thunderous Tea eats it, Kaleo eats it, so it's a tough sell. Drapion. There's this one like Hippo team where it gets that toxic spikes, and then also like soft check against Alakazam and Celebi and Rhea Nicholas. So I guess it's okay. Pursuit plus toxic spikes plus you run the right bulk. It's not awful, but very hard to justify. It's weak to spikes, loses badly to every ground type, etc. Raikou faced one SPL and like this cheesy rain team. Bolt Beam, Lithium Power Ice is cool, good speed tier, tying Starmie, outrunning Tornadus, Latios, Thunderous T types, and kind of soft-checking Thunderous T at least. But, again, on a rain team, if I'm using a electric type, I'd rather be using a Thunderous T because it's just so much stronger and it has the Focus Blast, Espeon, Magic Bounce plus niche screen setter. A couple people have used like a Screens Espeon. Can use Trick Specs, I guess, or Baton Pass. I don't know. It's very, very, very mid. Quagsire, it's like a worse water absorber than Gastrodon. We saw it once in World Cup doing that, and I guess it's got unaware. I don't know. Hard to fit, weak to spikes, takes too much damage for any special attack. Tough. Brazion is just disgustingly weak. You'd think it'd be cool because like it's got that speed presence with Pursuit, but no, it's just too weak. And it like doesn't. It takes a month from physical attacks. It's tough. Good special bulk, cool stabs if Latios didn't exist, but Latios exists and Alakazam exists. So yeah, Cofagrigus are getting to F rank. So like these Pokemon, like you've seen like once in the blue moon, if you will. It's able to spin block and be a physically bulky Pokemon, and that's about it. Awful in game flow. Both it and the next two Pokemon, ironically enough, Nidoqueen and Golurk, basically were used when Terrakion was peaking in like late Black White 1 or early Black White 2, I can't remember. And like Golurk was like used, oh my god, it's a Terrakion counter, oh my god, Nidoqueen is a Terrakion counter. Nidoqueen, I guess it and Nidoking can kind of both be here because it's strong with like sheer force boosted attacks. And Landorus, I got banned. People were like, oh, what's next? These Pokemon are next. Not really, they never were next. They were never as fast or as strong, and it was tough selling from there. But at least Nidoqueen has the ability to check Terrakion. And I kind of just function similar to other grounds other than that. So yeah, Toxic Spike or Rock, Golurk, again, it was the Terrakion solution on one or two teams. I actually saw SPL usage, which is pretty funny. Vaporeon with Hydration or Rain is cool, otherwise completely useless. Infernape, classic mixed ape. I actually brought it one at SPL when my team was already out, and I won with it. It was cool, but it takes more damage than it deals, and it's a little slower than Latios. And like in that speed tier, you'd rather run a Terrakion or Keldeo. It doesn't provide anything extra defensively, so possible justified. Porygon 2, actually during Black White 1, was like a demon on ladder for offense. If you don't know if like status or trick, you can just kind of sit on things and slowly 1v1 them with Bolt Beam plus Thunder Wave. Was good into Rain back when Politoed ran like Scarfathon, not so much anymore. Chandelure would be awesome if it got Shadow Tag. It does not. It's a Dream World ability. Chandelure would be awesome if Trantor doesn't exist. Guess what? It does. It's literally the second best Pokemon in the tier, so tough. Meloetta, that's just Peachy and like Sugar High. Used this with like a Relic Song set mixed. It sucks it needs to turn a setup. Fragile, weak to rocks, weak to spikes, but kind of strong, kind of cute. Zoroark, complete meme, just for the illusion. Not really worth it. Rotom, Mo, actually seen a couple usage over the years. Unfortunately, being suddenly weak to ice, like Ice Shard and U-Turn, kind of just makes it a worse Rotom wash. I guess suddenly you're really, really good into electric type moves, but most of those Pokemon carry an ice type move, and now you're weak to that. So tough. Staraptor, Skarmory, and all the physical attack walls didn't exist. It wasn't weak to rocks, maybe, but unfortunately it's like permanently stuck in UBL. Metacham, or McMegan wrote like a little post about it one day, and I think I tried it because he tried. I used it like some mold on Superstars or whatever. Very fringe, usually it runs that Headbutt for Jellicent and Tentacruel. You should run Ice Punch for Landorus and Gliscor. You should run Thunder Punch for Jellicent. You need Faked Out, you need Jump Kick, Bolt Punch for like Terrakion and tricking things off. It's just kind of whatever, It's slow and fragile. You want to run it with like a dedicated lead with Focus Sash, you want to do something. It's very, very strong, but when you're slow and you're fragile, it's a tough selling point. Cobalion, fighting steel typing just never really was as pragmatic defensively this generation, and also it got outclassed by a bunch of other steel types, and obviously other fighting types are stronger. Archops, it's like a watered down Aerodactyl lead, but it's cool because it's a bit stronger and people want to play against it. Mega, a nuke with tinted limbs, I guess it gets speed boost, but truth be told, 4 times the Tarax, can't one-shot a Tyranitar. Loses like 1v1 to pretty much everything in rain. Tough sell. Machamp, 1 or 2 Italian teams have used it, forced that confusion. It's got good coverage around it. I guess multiple good abilities if you don't use the Iron Punch. I wouldn't really, justify using this. There are just so many good fighting types that exist over it. Snorlax, I've seen it on a Sunstall with like a traditional set, where like 2-3-1 be special heavy rain or offense, I guess, but sucks into sand, sucks into physical attackers, reliant on rest. It's just not worth it. Roserade is like in the bottom of the barrel. Spiker in this metagame, you never really see it, maybe once or twice. Can check Rotom Wash or Keldeo once over, but Shaman, I actually saw some usage on like Hippowdon stands with Magnezone. It's cool to see it's there. Get that drop, not awful, but unfortunately doesn't really check anything defensively besides Rotom Wash, and it's just kind of whatever. A Heracross, Natural Gift Ice, or a Scarf Moxie Sweeping offense, cool, strong, but again, they're just better, stronger fighting competition. Mandibuzz, very unique defensive profile, being grounded is great. Unfortunately, it does take super effective from Stealth Rock, and dark type like Foul Play doesn't hit Scizor or an extra to neutrally this generation, like the next generation, so it's just very limited. And last but not least, Claydol did see some fringe usage as a spinner on Sun teams way back in the Stone Age. Earthquake Tyranitar to kind of circumvent the pursuit weakness, and it was able to check a Tracheon really well, similar to Golurk, but again, very limited, very niche, doesn't really beat much else. Liability into range. So yeah, we kind of sped through the C to F. A lot of Pokemon. We give a lot of detail to the S through A tiers, but this is like my full, in-depth, detailed, black and white, overused tier list. I really hope you guys enjoyed. Hopefully I didn't get too fast at the end. If I did, ask comments in the question. Hopefully this will be up like first week of September sometime. I'm recording this right now. It's like 12:10 a.m. September 1st. I started recording this on August 31st. But yeah, I wanted to try this YouTube thing again. Let's see how it goes. Any feedback appreciated. You guys have a great night. Or day. Or afternoon, whatever it is. I love Black White. I'm happy to talk to you guys. Have a good one. Bye.